to another episode of From Change to Change. I'm Marcus Simmons, better known as Chachi.
My name is Dr. Matthew Green.
Hi, and I'm Consuela Sway Gaines.
And today we have another extravagant episode. We're going to have Dr. Chris Williams with us because, as you know, it's voting season.
Yes.
So hopefully, so we're just trying to get her up on it and don't get caught slipping because it's a very
By the time this airs, there will be less than a month before the presidential election.
Yes, I'm so excited. Election season is always a pretty exciting time for me as a fairly new registered voter. And I make sure I vote in every election, y'all. I don't care what it is. If they say it's something on my ballot, I do my research and get out and vote.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what we do. And that's what vote is about, educating people on how to make educated votes. How to make educated votes. And we also have Dr. Checo Yancey, who is another vote member out of the New Orleans chapter. And as you know, whenever he's on, oh man, it's awesome.
It is.
We're gonna have to have a 2-hour show just for Checo.
He always give us so much information because this man has been doing this with He's over Voters Organized to educate our sister organization where they really focus strictly on voting and they have the ability to endorse some folks. So that's really exciting as well. And hopefully he can let us know if they have endorsed anyone in this area.
Yes, and I think he might rival you in his civic engagement because not only do I think Checo doesn't miss a vote, I don't think he misses a day at the Capitol when legislature is in session. Like he is pounding the pavement every single day.
Yeah, he was just recently there. They're not even in session.
They're not even in session and he's still there.
He's always at the Capitol, so he's always he's on it.
But it reminds people, right, not to take their vote and their civic voice for granted. Because for some people they don't have that voice. And if you are able and eligible to vote at home, you need to use your voice.
That's it.
However, we will do a disclaimer right now. When you're on From Change to Change, we will not tell you who to vote for because we just won't do that. But Checo is part of Voters
Organized to educate.
So he can. Okay. So look, with that, you guys hold on to your seats. And we'll be right back with this awesome beginning of this episode.
And we are back, and as promised, here is Dr. Chris Williams, one of Lafayette's finest leaders who has been so instrumental in so many areas from politics to community service. I don't know what this man doesn't do to lead Louisiana, training up leaders. So with Black Voters Matter, you just have such a long list.
There is not a election or voting event that I don't think Chris Williams is not involved.
You're not going to find one.
Not even Lafayette, surrounding areas.
You're not going to find one.
Thank y'all so much for the kind words.
He's there. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, it is election season.
It is.
It's an exciting time. Especially for me, I don't know about y'all, because me being a new voter, I get excited every time it's time to vote because I want to exercise my right as a citizen to be able to vote. And so we here at Vote want to keep people informed so they can make some informed decisions about who they're voting for, what's on their ballots, why are these elections important, and that's why we asked Dr. Williams to come and hang out with us a bit today because he's all in the know when it comes to elections. So, of course, at the top of the list is the presidential race, which is important, so important, but even more important are our local elections.
They are.
So let's take our folks to our local elections.
Okay.
Because the president, that's
It's
that's
gonna
a
happen.
given.
That's right.
That's going to happen.
That's right.
But we need to talk about our new 6th congressional district and who all is in that, and also the PSC, our Public Service Commissioner, that's on our ballot as well. So tell us about the 6th congressional district and why is that so important for people to be paying attention to on the down ballot?
Absolutely. So good to be with you guys today and talk about local politics and local governments. The 6th congressional district has been going on a long time. Just a brief history. It was thrown out well over a decade ago because of the McKinney case out of Georgia, where they ruled that her district was gerrymandered, and they used that Supreme Court ruling to apply across the country, which at that time was Congressman Cleo Fields' seat. So that district was done away with, and lo and behold, with the census being what it is and being able to regroup with those numbers, we all know that Louisiana is at least 1/3 majority minority in terms of districts, right? So we have 6 districts in the state. 33% of those individuals are African American, people of color. And obviously I didn't take all the trade classes, guys, but I do know that 33% of 6 is 2, right?
Yep.
But we've always had 1, and that's based out of the New Orleans area. And it kind of, after Katrina, it kind of slid west a little bit to include large portions of Baton Rouge because of the migration of people because of Hurricane Katrina. But here we are again after the 2020 census, and again it reveals that we needed to have 2 seats. There was a lot of pushback from a lot of people. Saw the blue shirts all over the Capitol during that time. We had some tough committee hearings, places that we go to committee to try to get these seats. And you can tell that the die was cast because they would listen to us, but out of committee, they knew there was a vote. They did not let one proposal come out of committee.
Wow.
Even all the amendments on the floor, if you can imagine going to the state capitol to try to push for the argument that Louisiana should have 2 black Congress people. Let's see how we can make this happen collectively. They wasn't going to have it. So they depended on the courts. It went through the court system. I remember it was a cold day. We went to the state capitol. A lot of people didn't show up that day. And that was the day that we finally agreed to, and they agreed to have a district that would go basically from East Baton Rouge Parish to Lafayette to Alexandria to Shreveport. And that's what
Really
we're running
cuts
on
across the
today.
state.
It cuts across the state. Now, many people are asking, will that district hold? Well, we don't know. The Supreme Court gave the ruling in Alabama that affected this case that basically says we're going to allow the fall elections to go through, and then we have to go back and maybe tweak some things, but it sets the precedent for Louisiana, Alabama, and other states like it to have what the population demographics say should be in terms of representation. So we have the 6th congressional district, and we have 3 people running in it. So we need people to go out and vote and express their choice.
And I want to tell the people at home, so just to put this in context, the creation of the 6th congressional district is based on the census, but it also goes back to the Voting Rights Act. And the reason that it was created was that these civil rights era court cases are still being fought today.
They are.
Right? Like we often think of the civil rights and voting as something that happened in the past, but that's the basis of the creation of the 6th congressional district, is that when you are in a state where the minority voting block or votes as a block, such as it does very often in Louisiana, we didn't see the representation in who we were electing to Congress. And so the courts came down and said, no, the Voting Rights Act needs to be implemented, and we get the 6th congressional district. So when people at home are thinking about, right, like how do politics relate from past to present to today and how these fights are still going on, it's really, really important to know the Voting Rights Act is core to how people are still fighting for representation in Louisiana today.
That's right. And the interpretation of the Voting Rights Act, right? So, we were pleasantly surprised when the Supreme Court ruled the way that it did. And we still have some more battles to go, but at least we're at a point where those parameters are still in place, and we have to force those issues. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund, vote, the ACLU, the coalition that came together kept the full press going. It was a hard-fought battle, And now, citizens, all we got to do is show up during early voting and on November the 5th to vote for the candidate of your choice to make it happen. We have 3 people running that race. The former congressman, who's now a senator, Cleo Fields. We have Mr. Anderson out of Baton Rouge running. And we have Mr. Elbert Guillory out of Opelousas. All 3 of those individuals running. I think it's 2 Democrats. And of course, Mr. Guillory is a Republican in a heavily Democratic district. You're right, though. When you look at the district, going from Baton Rouge to Lafayette through Opelousas, Alexandria to Shreveport, it's a very long district. But at the end of the day, I think every fair-minded individual would say the citizens of Louisiana at least have on its congressional federal representation a true representation of the makeup and the demographics of the state of Louisiana. And that's all people are asking for. I think that in this day, the dialogue that we're having is just tremendous in terms of the vitriolic way that we are expressing each other. It's off the charts right now. And I think that at some point, people are going to have to make some tough decisions about how they want to be remembered in history, because we are living in historic times. These things will be in history books for years to come. This is not the norm, and we're going to have some reality as it relates to fair representation in the country, how AI affects all that we're doing, and how foreign influences affects what's happening in the state of Louisiana. We have some major agricultural input that comes out here. The ports that come out of Iberia, Lake Charles, and New Orleans are all our French heritage, our African and Cuban heritage. All of those things make a big tie. So that's why it's important for people to go out and vote. And I want to make one more quick point. The fact that you can call someone that can really, I guess, understand where you're coming from and have your voice from a federal standpoint. That's whether you're dealing with Social Security, whether you're dealing with some type of pension. There's a big deal going on now with Representative Graves that they're trying to get through to correct an injustice that's been going on for decades regarding the federal government. Yes, me too. Me too. And so, but to have someone, and one of the candidates have already made a declaration that his office, if elected, is going to be located in Opelousas, Louisiana. So, we know that it makes a difference. It gives people access to our governmental leaders. And so we ask people to do their research. We have, there will be voter guides out there.
Yes.
You can take it or leave it. But the main thing is that Louisiana doesn't have we're still registering people, right? And we're still doing what we need to do to make sure that the rolls that Nancy Landry sent out in Lafayette Parish is over 300 people that are either purged or inactive. We need to go through those. Make sure you're not on that list, right?
Yes.
But more so, make sure that you vote and you participate.
Yeah.
So before we were on, we were talking about participation, and the 6th Congressional District gives a portion of Louisiana a voice in the federal government. A lot of people feel like their voice doesn't matter when it comes to elections. But we were talking before we went on air about a perfect example of where your voice does matter. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about why voting and why getting out the vote and why using that civic right matters.
Well, I'll go over 2 instances. One of them, 3 of them actually. One is in Caddo Parish, which is in the Shreveport area. The sheriff there was a race for sheriff, and that race was decided by 1, 2, 3 votes, depending on which person you listen to, right? Didn't necessarily think that the gentleman that was running, that was African American, who was running to be the first African American sheriff of Caddo Parish, but they said they had to do a whole redo, right? In that particular case, they did the redo, and guess what? People came out and they voted, and he was recently sworn as the first sheriff. The second case is a case on the alderman seat in Opelousas, Louisiana. There was 2 gentlemen running for one of the vacant seats, and one gentleman had went to his relatives' house, hey, you going to vote? He said, yeah, I'm going later on. I'm going to go later on. He said, no, let me take you now. He said, no, I'm going to go later on. Okay, well, make sure you go vote for me, auntie. And then what happened was, it was a tie. That race was a tie. When he checked the rolls, auntie didn't make it to the polls. That could have been the one person that could have made the difference that race. My good friend Vernon Martin in Crowley, Louisiana. Vernon and I was at USL, UL together back in the day. Vernon won by 1 vote, right? And then we had the race that was here, the last mayor's race. Regardless of where you are in the mayor's race, Lafayette is known as a very conservative area, all right? But we've carved out in Southwest Louisiana those areas that we know that there are people that will do the analysis and make the vote that is necessary. This last mayor's race was like that. You had people that were strong Joyce Guillory people, and you had people that were strong Monique Boulay people, right? And I know on the portions that we normally work, which is called the purple area, which is basically the north side of Lafayette and the northern portion of Lafayette Parish, one or two precincts in the Broussard area. The ironic thing about that race that many people didn't cover was that in that race, there was the voter turnout was unparalleled, meaning normally in the United States of America, and particularly in our communities, you will see one of two things. You will see that the 18 to 39-year-old demographic is the lowest voting demographic in the country. The second lowest is the white voter turnout versus black voter turnout. It's usually black voter turnout is usually 10 to 20 points below. In this particular race, however, it was on par, meaning statistically there was no difference in terms of those people that were frequent voters and their voter turnout. But the ironic thing was that when they had the runoff for mayor, everyone anticipated there would be a drop-off on the black voter turnout. But because of the outreach that was out there, and people, again, not necessarily telling people who to vote for, because people already made up their mind who they was going to vote for. But to get them to the polls the second time in a December case, that's very difficult. But again, statistically, the people of the north side came out, and statistically they were on par with voter turnout overall. My contention, and everybody that, and very few people covered it, but that was the difference in the race. I think she won by 2,000 to 3,000 votes, and that was statistically the difference in the race. Point being that your vote matters. Our vote matters. It makes a difference in so many different elections. There are people that study this, gone very briefly to the presidential campaign. They have already drilled down the top 30 precincts in the United States of America that's going to decide the presidential election, ladies and gentlemen. They're anticipating that's going to be that close, right? And what I'm saying is that, without going through the whole electoral college thing, there's a popular vote and there's an electoral college count of 270. The first candidate between Trump and Harris to get to 270 is the president of the United States. The point being is that we have to be engaged in these elections, and it all falls back to local, right? Whether it's your school district, whether it's your local city council, your constable. In New Iberia, Louisiana, they're going through municipal elections right now. And here we're going through some elections in Carencourt, that's a constable going on. And so the urge is that as we work to get you registered between now and the deadline date, you'll see many groups out there. I talked to the Urban League today. They're going to have people throughout the state. I know Vote is always out there. Black Voters Matters is out there. The League of Women Voters is out there. All of these groups don't necessarily want to tell you who to vote for. They want to make sure you're engaged in this democratic process. And guess what? You can do it on your phone now, but you just need an ID. So go ahead on and get that ID. And if you need help during that, call any one of our organizations, so we'll be able to help you get that. But voter participation is going to be the key for this election cycle.
And the national elections get the headlines and has the money. But the things that affect our everyday life, our schools, our roads, the job opportunities in our communities.
Especially like that PSC.
That's right. We didn't talk about that. Yes.
I was going to say, last week we had Timmy Chasson on talking about Hembola and the person you can go to in your neighborhood to solve issues. But let's talk about the light bills.
Yes, the light bills. Mine was extremely high. And people don't realize there are people who are actually elected officials who are put in place to make sure that Atmos and LUS and all these different corporations aren't just robbing us blind. And that public service commissioner is one of those people. It's 5 of them, but our district is District 2. And we have a public service commissioner up for election, and that person will represent our area and be able to help to regulate our electric bills, our gas bills. I want to say even as far as our Cox cable bills and things like that. And so we have to pay attention to that too, because we complain about things, but oftentimes we don't know who to complain to,
Yes.
who is responsible for what. And kind of like what Matt was saying about the Ebola issue, most people didn't know who to go to, who to bring those issues to. Was it local? Was it state?
Yes.
Was it federal? So we have to be, more mindful and really like do our homework to understand who's responsible. So our public service commissioner is important. He's on the ballot. Make sure to vote for your public service commissioner.
People like to think the president will control the price of electricity. No, it's
Not
that,
here.
It is
Not
that
here.
Not here.
commission
That's right.
in Louisiana that controls whether you are paying more or less for your energy bills.
That's it.
right.
That's
right.
it.
So very important. One of the things I was just thinking about, the kilowatt, the charge that you charge per kilowatt is what we're talking about, and 1 or 2 cents can make such a big difference,
Yes.
right? And so the question becomes, how much is enough for the electric companies, for the water companies, and how do we regulate that in a fair and equitable way? And we have to be able to recognize, when are we going to speak out? How are we going to engage? One of the things we teach in Lee, Louisiana, one of our faculty members, Ms. Gaines right here, teaches us about how do we engage with these bodies, right? How do we influence these bodies to ensure, because look, I used to work at the Capitol back when I was doing my grad work at Southern University, and the sergeant at arms, Shawty Boardman from Abbeville, put me aside. He said, "Williams, what you see out there?" I said, "I see a bunch of people." He said, "How they dressed?" I said, "Wow, they dressed in some nice suits, some shiny suits, shoes, and nice ties." I said, "Yeah." He said, what do you think these people are here for?" I said, "I don't know, good government." He said, "No, yeah, they may be here for good government, but they're here because they want something." You see, these companies have lobbyists and people that are pitting their interests. They hire these people all the time. The question is, who does the everyday person have to lobby for them and to fight for them and to fight for what's right? And that's what groups like what we're talking about, that's what we do. We try to make sure that the playing field is at least even. So in the Public Service Commission race, we've had 1 reception already. We're going to have 2 more receptions. Just check out our Facebook page so that way we would have little receptions for all 3 of the candidates that basically you can ask some questions and then make a decision. There are 3 people in that race, current Senator Cousin, you have Laborde, who is running,
Nick Laborde.
and Gillum out of East Baton Rouge Parish.
Yes.
And so you have 3 people running, and that district is large. It goes from East Baton Rouge
Yes.
Parish to Lafayette to Houma Thibodeau. As was said earlier, we only have 5 to represent the entire state, but they make a difference on, one of the things we talk about housing is, how do you make housing affordable? Well, one of the tangible contingents upon housing is your utility costs, right?
Yes.
And so you can't talk about housing without talking about utilities. And Louisiana is estimated now that you have to make approximately $22 an hour for a family to be able to afford just safe, affordable, and sustainable housing. We're nowhere near that, ladies and gentlemen. So your utilities cost is a big part of that, right? And so who's representing those young families, those people on fixed incomes, those people that have to be engaged in budgeting every month to ensure that it's fair and equitable, balanced with the profits that are necessary for companies to make, and then what's happening in Texas where they've totally deregulated it and it's just crashed. The people just with the littlest natural catastrophe are out for weeks of utilities, and it really got contentious from my relatives told me the last time, because the people began to lash out because the corporations are taking the monies in, but the reinvestment is not going back into the infrastructure, which causes a lot of headaches. So we have to always be engaged, is our only point. Your voting begins that engagement.
Now, I was going to add, we think about the obvious stuff, the bills, right? But there's also, we live in a hurricane-prone state. Energy in a hurricane-prone state is extra important. What are the companies doing to weatherproof, hurricane-proof, right? Like, are they taking measures to make sure that we are protected as best we can be from hurricanes and other natural disasters, right? Because now it's not just hurricanes. There's flooding. There are a bunch of other natural disasters that affect our utilities. And so it goes back to your point. I was thinking as you were talking about the lobbyists in the Capitol, There are lobbyists in the Capitol, but those representatives are accountable to you at home.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
right.
brings us back to why it's so important to vote, because if they're listening to the lobbyists instead of you, that's when you have more votes than they have lobbyists. That
That's right.
always is always the case.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So, wow. This time always goes by too fast when we have Dr. Williams here with us. So, in closing, I know, we encourage early voting because anything can happen, y'all. I'm an early voter. I vote on day one of early voting, which will start October 18th. And so, encouraging people to get out and early vote. What would you suggest that they do? Start doing like now.
Absolutely. So real quickly, we're gonna just do your own research. You're gonna get a lot of commercials coming up starting in the next few days. You're gonna see hear a lot of stuff on the radio, and just do your own research. Find out. It'll filter to the top. Martin Luther King said one time during the presidential election, he said, "I don't have to tell you who to vote for. You know who to vote for. Just go out there and vote." And that's what we want you to do. We want to make sure check your voter. Go vote on the website. Check your status on voting. There's a lot of people that's been purged for a lot of different reasons.
Yes.
So make sure that you're good, and then do your homework, attend all of the forums that's going to be held, do your research, find out, get your sample ballot. It's free. And look, there's no cost associated. There's no cost associated with any of this. And then look at the guidelines. If there's going to be a push card put out that kind of talks about the guidelines, look at your guidelines. And always, if you need a ride to the polls, partner with one of your local churches or nonprofits to get there to vote.
That's it. And you heard it straight from Dr. Chris Williams. Thank you so
All
much
right,
for
thanks
joining
for
us
having me.
today.
Yes, it was great. Thanks.
And we will return with Mr. Chico Yancey.
And we are back continuing this conversation about voting and the importance of it. And now we have with us a very special guest who's near and dear to my heart. I've seen this man for so many years. Never knew that I would have the opportunity to actually be a co-worker of his, and he used to come into LCIW. Him and former state representative Patricia Smith would come into LCIW and bring so much encouragement to the women, and kept us abreast of what was going on legislatively. And we certainly appreciated Mr. Checo Yancey for keeping us in mind. And he is joining us today on Zoom from the Baton Rouge Voters Organized to Educate office. How you doing today, Checo?
I'm doing great, and hey, thank y'all for having me, welcoming me into the old great city of Lafayette.
Thank you so much for joining us. And so we are in the thick of get out the vote season. And I know Voters Organized to Educate, which is our sister organization here at Vote. You guys are kind of like in the thick of things, and you're in the heart of it in Baton Rouge. Can you just tell us what's going on in Baton Rouge? What you guys have going on? What you doing?
Like doing, where do I start first? I mean, in Baton Rouge, first of all, Sway, I can remember as you said that about LCIW, walking in and seeing you up on the stage, and with your choir and singing and everything. And I remember, trying to encourage people that, hey, we're working as hard as we can out here, but it's going to take you, but you got to get your families involved, and guess what? We're still doing the same thing. Everybody just don't realize how important getting out the vote is. And here in Baton Rouge right now, we have a mayor's race. I'm sitting there looking at a list now of candidates and people calling. But right now, we have our team vetting candidates. My mission right now is until the last day of voter registration, I'm registering as many people as I can and encouraging them to get out and go vote. And I don't think people realize what has happened in the state of Louisiana, across the country, with new voting rules. And, you know, other day I was in a meeting and I brought the newspaper and they had about 40 pages of people that had been purged from the rolls. So, that's making our job harder. And I tell people now, check your status. It's so easy to check your status. I'm encouraging people to download the Go Vote app. You can do TikTok, you can do all this other bull, but guess what? You need to be checking your status, because I am so afraid that a few thousand people, not just in East Baton Rouge Parish, but in your area, in the New Orleans area, and Tangipahoa, all these surrounding places, Chinsaw Parish, all the have no idea that they've been purged from the rolls. So, I would hope with this, what our message come out is download the GAUX app. It's free, and you can go on the app, and guess what? You can learn so much about that app. I mean, you get your status, you know where your voting location is. I like it when I pull it up and it says active voter. It just excites my heart, active voter, because we fought so hard with former state representative Pat Smith. In fact, I was talking to her a couple of days ago. We keep in contact regular. Well, that's my hero. I mean, my shero. Let me change that. Not hero, but shero. Because she fought 5 years for us. But back to what you're saying, hopefully, people will understand that voting is very, very important. And how important it is, it's important because out of the 3 million voters, eligible voters in the state of Louisiana, the guy that's in office now only got less than a half a million votes. Turnout was poor, and now as a result of people not coming out and vote, I'm gonna say that again, not coming out and vote, we now have a supermajority in this state, from the governor all the way down to the agriculture commissioner is Republican. And by the way, uh, I don't think people realize out of the 105 legislators at the Capitol on the House side, you only have 29 Democrats. You only have 29 Democrats. And on the Senate side, out of the 39, you only have 11 senators. So, people are wondering, how did they get all these bad bills in? How did they do all that? Well, voters been on the front line. We're going to be there. We're going to put our testimony down. We're going to make a record. But guess what? You can't get the votes. You cannot get the votes. That's how important it is. And every day, we send out our little team things, and within our organization, uh, little Jeff now is appointing committees and boards and everything. And guess what? To me, that's very important, because he's appointing people that don't look like us, have no idea what we're about. And guess what? We got 3 more years and 3 months of this. See, we just seeing it just starting. I don't think people are actually, and I don't want to, pop on this, but to me, it's very important. We work for reform, Consuela and Marcus and Matt, for 35, 40 years. These son of these people came, and in 9 days, took everything. No parole no more, no good time. I mean, people that get arrested and convicted after August the 1st this year, you're doing 85% of your sentence. And people ask me, well, what does 85% mean? That means if you got 10 years, you're going to do 8 years and 6 months. It doesn't matter how much good time you get and all those things. You may be able to shave a little bit off here and there, but guess what? Basically, you're going to do all of your sentence. And that's from the administration of the criminal justice system, that now the chair is Ms. Debbie Villio from Kenner. a former prosecutor. The deputy is the deputy code in the criminal justice is Bacala, a former deputy. And these people are doing these things, and guess what? We have no sense of what's going to happen because now you got a pro criminal justice committee that's made up of former law enforcement people, district attorneys people, and far right people that don't look like us. I think he had four Democrats on that committee and people of color, and guess what? You can never get the vote out because it will always be 9-4. So therefore, we pleaded our case, and in those 9 days, they took parole, good time, and they closed every loop that was in there. That's how important voting is because not only did we lose the state house here, now people didn't vote down the ballot. They didn't come out, didn't vote down the ballot. So now you have a super majority. And people ask me all the time, what is super majority? The legislature right now is super majority. So those are some of the things that we're working on. It's dear to my heart and it's hurting that as much work as we did, they could tear down in 9 days. And then they came back in the next, that was a special session, crime session. Then they came back in the regular session and closed every little loophole. So much that they closed it that they brought a district attorney in Orleans Parish and put him on the hot seat. Or why are you correcting
Mm-hmm.
sentences? How dare you come and correct what Massa done? Okay? And that's the way I frame it. Black boy, little black boy, what you doing correcting Massa? You know? But that's what we got right now, and I saw somebody had a question in there, but I hate to go off on my tantrum, but guess what? If we don't get out and vote November the 5th, we could have a supermajority in the state house and a supermajority in that White House. And
Mm-hmm.
God forbid that would happen, Somebody had a question. First
Yeah,
of all, did I answer
Chico,
your
I
question?
wanted to follow up. You always, always. I wanted to follow up because over the summer, Vote had a conference, waking the sleeping giant, getting people engaged and recognizing their power. Because you mentioned in the last governor's election, it was only 500,000 people, right, that elected and put the current governor in office, and that's in a state of 4 million people, give or take. And so it's a small fraction. But I also know that the value and purpose of your vote is personal for you. And it's always a great time of year to talk about the victories of vote and the personal stories here. I was wondering if you could tell folks at home who may be tuning in for the first time and who may not know about Act 636, but about why it matters to you so much come election season.
I don't. It matters to me because when we was in Angola, we realized trying to change the law, filing writs, and all those things. And I'll never forget, we was in a meeting and our executive director, Norris, says, we need to change. Not only are we trying to change the laws, but you got to change the people that's sitting there making the laws. And the light bulb went off that, okay, these are the people that's making laws. These elected officials that have no idea what's going on. Yeah, people did something they had no business, but at least you're supposed to try to rehabilitate people. But we realized we had to get to work, and voting was a very important part of this, Matt. Voting is so important that people, have forgotten what happened years ago with Act 636, because we did this conference in Alexander and invited people. We had a nice crowd. I was really disappointed though, because there's close to 70,000 former incarcerated people that now have the eligibility to register and to go vote. And guess what? We are still fighting that, Matt, out here, getting brothers and sisters that's former incarcerated people that benefited from this, and they tell me my vote won't count. And then I have to go on another 30 minutes to explain to them just how important the vote is. That former state representative Pat Smith took 5 years. We didn't get it the first year. Every year, our motto was, "I'll be back next year," and we kept coming back. One of our members, former founders of the Angola Special Civics Project, Kenny Johnston, we call him Biggie. Uh, Biggie was just like myself, a veteran, and he fought in the Vietnam War. And, he had some problems and everything. But guess what? He was on parole for 25 years, but could not vote, but he paid taxes and everything. So, we fought, and, I became the face of whatever, making sure that we could get out there. And I never forget the testimony was to the chairman was, "I will trade my right to vote if you tell me I don't have to pay taxes, because my taxes pay your salary. But taxation without representation, you don't represent me, because I didn't put you in office. Nobody that looks like me or former incarcerated had anything to do with you being elected." And the guy laughed. He said, "You know what? I kind of agree with you, Mr. Yancey." And then they voted that out of the committee. That was just first step. Then we had to bring it to the House floor. And we didn't have enough votes. And then we had to do some maneuver. And that's when I said, it brought me back to civics. I don't think I said that from the beginning, but doing the work we do now is just like when we took in the 8th grade in civics. The legislature, the separate branches, the judicial branch, the legislature branch, the executive branch. And we realized, okay, you needed, we had a friend of ours that was telling us you have to have someone else to get it back to the House floor. And we did that. And it came out of the committee, and then it took off. And then we got to the Senate side. And most folks don't realize how a bill, we said bill, but it's just an instrument at first. So I want people to understand, when we put together these products, it's just an instrument, and somebody is carrying that instrument and trying to get it to become a bill. Went to the Senate side, we got it out of the Senate side, it'll go on the Senate floor, and myself and several other people, including Consuela and all other folks, the vote people down there, we were struggling. And finally, Senator Dan Clayton, and I'd been lobbying him, he got on the Senate floor and says that when someone come to my office and they said they are not satisfied with the job that I'm doing, he said I had already had my secretary to look up their voting status. And if I find out they're not a registered voter and they live in my district or haven't voted, guess what? I tell him to do something else. He said, but here's a guy here that's really trying to get his voting rights back, and I'm gonna vote for him to get his voting rights back. And Act 636 became law. And now we're struggling to do what? Wake up that sleeping giant. Wake that sleeping giant up. Wake up. We used our theme song from Teddy Pendergrass. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. It's time to get up and go do something. So that's how that happened, and I know we only got a few more minutes, but guess what? This is dear and near to my heart, so I can talk about this all day long, because I want somebody to understand, especially if you're a former incarcerated person, you now have the right to vote. You now have a right to say who represents you, and you have to do
That's
those things.
it. Yes,
And
yes.
Checo, that reminds me of you don't even know this, but you had one of my favorite quotes of all time. And hearing you tell that story about how this happened for 5 years, you once said, "Change shows up in overalls, and it looks like hard work." And that's true to a T to the story you just told.
And you know what? That's our thing. From change to change. From change to change. And that's what you guys are doing right now, educating the public and let them know you can break those chains. How? By getting out and go vote. And guess what? You can make the change.
That's it. And that is, the purpose of everything that we do is to encourage voter participation, especially our formerly incarcerated people who have their voting rights restored. Um, and it's amazing that we have to do it grassroots because no one in the Secretary of State's office is advertising that. So we have to do it from person to person. And that's how we maneuver here at Vote.
Can I say this that people might not understand? I'll
Hmm.
be 79 years old November. Not in my lifetime, I'm sure in your lifetime, that now I have to register with the state in order to do voter registration. We have never had, just think over the years, the NAACP, the Urban League, the Women League of Voters, all these national organization churches, they could just go do a voter registration. Now, Massa say, I got to register with Massa, so now I can register people. That is crazy. But that's what we are. And that's a result of what? Not going out and vote. So now you got a Secretary of State that was, and the little Jeff was former governor. I mean, former Attorney General. Now he's governor and she's Attorney General. And that's where we're going, man.
Yeah, it seems like a lot is going backwards instead of forward. But we're going to continue to do the work that we do here at Vote. Nothing's gonna make us turn backwards. We're moving forward. And I just want to thank you again, Mr. Checo Yancey, for coming on the show and dropping all of their wisdom and knowledge with us and our viewers here in Lafayette and surrounding areas because we are streaming now. So this is going all over the place. And we certainly appreciate all of the work that you're doing with Voters Organized to Educate. Just keep up the good job and happy early birthday.
Let me shout out to you guys in Lafayette. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. Okay. When I read about, the apartment thing, what you're doing, that you got direct access to elected officials and everything. But guess what? With you, Marcus, Shanika, and Matt, and all the members there, guess what? You guys are making a difference. And that's what we're talking about. And Sway, would you ever thought that you would come off the stage of LCIW and be on the stage with elected officials and then you having a voice to tell them how you like for things to go? That's getting
No,
out and getting out
yeah.
the vote and making sure that you do your job. And Marcus, I mean, look at Marcus. He used to be shy, but now look at it. He big Marcus now, and hey, and Matt, I mean, hey, and we're all together in this gumbo and we're trying to do what? GOTV. What is that? Get out the vote and get your behind out and go vote.
That's it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank
And
you for having me.
we'll be back.
Ooh, all right, and we are back with none other than State Representative Timmy
I
Chasson.
appreciate you.
How you
I'm doing well.
doing?
I'm doing well. We was having some heated off camera discussions in here.
It was live.
Completely off topic. We
Very
might have
off
to
topic.
save that for another
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But that it was some serious conversations
ma'am.
going on, and this particular conversation we're about to have is also serious
It is.
too. And it's about Himbola Manor Apartments.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know when Vote, we did our protest. We went
Right.
out there. We did see you. You were there. You were present. From what I understood, you kind of went in some of the apartments when they
Correct.
were conducting the inspections.
Right.
So
It was horrible.
what did you see?
It was horrible.
It was
It was horrible. What you saw. So initially, I was contacted by a gentleman who said, "Hey man, I need some help. My ceiling fell. Didn't know where it was." Okay. So sir, I'm thinking I own a roofing and construction company. He needs some help. But no, he's asking me, "Hey, no, I need some help for the situation." Okay, where are you at? Himbola. Okay, not a problem. I tell him how to go about it, the proper steps, contact property management. And he's already telling me over the phone, first conversation, I've tried, they're not coming. It's been like this. How long has it been like this? Oh, it's been like this for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Your ceiling fell and nobody's came? So I contacted them. Well, they weren't too kind to me. And I'm just calling on the man's behalf. Didn't give any formal introduction. Just, hey, just calling on behalf of a gentleman that called, just trying to get some help. That turned into, man, if she's acting like that, like, let me just go past. So when I went and passed, what occurred was, as I went to his apartment and saw what was going on, it was almost like and I'm not a superhero, so please mind the reference. It was almost like somebody shone the bat signal in the air, like Gotham City. It's like, hey, somebody's here. Oh, Mr. Timmy, come see my apartment. Well, after 4 or 5 apartments, it's like, okay, mold, mildew, leaky ceilings, drywall, sheetrock, flooring, shoe mold, and baseboards. It's like, well, hold on, my baby. If it's leaking down your wall, it's clearly in your walls. It's in the insulation. All of this has to come out. Oh no, they came and I think they was able to stop the leak, but they're gonna come and repaint my walls. No, my baby, that's not how this goes. The sheetrock and insulation has to come out. That mold and mildew will creep like on a trellis, a vine. Like there's death in that wall right now, and you're only gonna get sicker as the time goes. This has to come out. So I contact them again. Well, just that fast, someone posted on Facebook, and I had already started the process. Me and my legislative assistant, Miss Inez, who's the greatest.
I know.
She contacted the property management company, Foresight, and then we tracked down David Starr. David Starr is the owner.
Yes.
So there's a 201 number, and we're dialing it, but not getting any feedback from them. Okay, well, not a problem. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna contact HUD. I mean to tell you, in the time I've contacted HUD and Louisiana Housing Council, someone posted online, and then it became almost viral, just that fast. So 2 entities had been contacted: Louisiana Housing Council, HUD had been contacted, and it wasn't quite as serious. Just, hey, I need y'all to come and take a look at it. Then contacted LCG. The mayor's office jumped on top of it. We scheduled everything. And then just that fast, someone posted. And then when someone posted about the damage they had in their apartment, Miss Tyra is non-stop with it. She just don't stop. People need to tell her thank you and thank you and thank you again.
Yes.
She called me and said, Timmy, you on it? Oh yeah, I'm on it. I'm doing all this, not realizing that it's just not those apartments, those 4 or 5 that I saw. That turned into, Timmy, no, it's been like this. And let me make a post. And she made a post, y'all. And from there, so many people, this building, this building, this building, this
And
building.
it went
that
back,
building,
as
that.
far as I've
Yes.
seen, it's gone back
it's
to
years.
like 2019.
Years. Now that upsets me, because